Okay, so you want to own an AI automation agency. Learn a few no-code tools, connect some business software, charge a client a monthly fee, and watch the retainers stack up. No product to build, no inventory, no employees required to start. Just workflows, a laptop, and a client's business running smoother because of you. It sounds like the easiest business anyone could start in 2026. The global AI agents market alone is projected to grow from roughly $6 billion in 2025 to over $100 billion by 2034. The number of AI automation agencies has exploded from around 2,000 in 2024 to more than 12,000 in 2026 in under 2 years. But here's the number almost nobody mentions in the Start Your AI Agency videos. Of the agencies that launched in 2025, an estimated 60% have completed fewer than 5 client projects. Not 5,000. 5. And one of the most well-funded AI companies in the industry, backed by more than $445 million from Microsoft and Qatar's sovereign wealth fund, collapsed into bankruptcy in May of 2025 after it turned out its AI was actually 700 human engineers typing behind a curtain. That gap between an industry growing this fast and a failure rate this brutal is exactly what this video walks through. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly why a signed client contract can already be a loss on your books before you've built a single workflow. The one Gartner documented failure pattern that quietly kills more agencies than bad sales ever could. And why one of the most important companies in this entire industry became a multi-billion-dollar business by refusing to sell AI at all. Before you take a single client call, you need to understand what an AI automation agency actually is at its core. It is not fundamentally an AI business. That sounds strange for a company built entirely around AI tools, so stay with it. What you're actually selling is not the automation itself. Automation is infinitely copyable and, on its own, worth nothing to a business owner who doesn't trust it. What you're selling is a guarantee that a business's messy, manual, error-prone process will run correctly, without a human checking it every single time, indefinitely. The client isn't paying for a clever workflow diagram. They're paying to stop worrying about the task entirely. Every automation you ship either earns that trust or, the first time it silently fails and drops a lead or double books a customer, destroys it in a single afternoon. Let's talk about what it costs just to exist. The appeal of this business is that the barrier to entry looks close to zero, and for the first client, it almost is. A basic tool stack, an automation platform like Make or Zapier, a conversational AI builder, a project management tool, typically runs somewhere between $100 and $300 a month to start. That sounds almost too easy. And for exactly one client, it is. But the moment you want to operate as a real business rather than a freelancer with a Stripe link, the costs change. Forming a proper business entity and getting basic contracts drafted, a services agreement and a scope of work template that actually protects you runs somewhere between $500 and $0 if you want them done properly rather than copied from a forum post. Professional liability insurance, also called errors and omissions insurance, is not optional once you're touching a client's CRM, customer data, or payment systems, and typically runs $500 to $1,500 a year for a small agency, more once you're handling sensitive data in regulated industries like healthcare or finance. And as of August 2026, agencies serving European Union clients face a new compliance requirement entirely. The EU AI Act now requires governance frameworks, risk documentation, and human oversight mechanisms for high-risk AI systems, with non-compliance penalties reaching up to 7% of global annual revenue. A Databricks survey found 40% of organizations believe their own AI governance is already insufficient, which means your EU clients are actively looking for agencies who can prove they've solved this. And the agencies who haven't invested in that compliance layer simply can't compete for that segment of the market at all. I see a basic portfolio site, a few paid case study builds you do for free just to have something to show, and the first few months of software subscriptions before a single retainer client signs, and a genuinely credible AI automation agency has spent somewhere between $3,000 and $10,000 just to be taken seriously, before it has earned $1 in revenue. That's a fraction of what a courier fleet or a SaaS company costs to start. It's also exactly why 12,000 people started one in the last 2 years, and exactly why the barrier being this low is not the advantage it looks like. Now let's talk about the cost to actually operate. And this is where the business gets genuinely difficult. The single most underestimated cost in this industry is not software. It's your own labor, priced honestly. A solo operator charging a client $3,000 a month for an automation build might spend 40 hours on discovery, building, testing, and client communication in the first month alone. That's $75 an hour. Before taxes, before the software subscriptions, before the unpaid hours spent on sales calls with prospects who never convert. Freelance automation and AI integration specialists on platforms like Upwork typically bill somewhere between $50 and $150 an hour for exactly this work, which means your own effective rate as an agency owner is often barely competitive with what you could bill as an independent contractor once every hour of unpaid sales, project management, and client handholding is actually counted. As you scale past yourself, hiring a contractor developer to help build becomes the next major cost. And here's where the industry pricing data gets genuinely useful. Boutique agency projects in 2026 run $5,000 to $50,000. Mid-market agency work runs $25,000 to $200,000. And enterprise consultancy engagements run into seven figures. But the client's willingness to pay those numbers is entirely dependent on you delivering a working result, and that's the bridge into the single biggest threat in this entire industry. Here is the mechanism that quietly kills more AI automation agencies than bad sales, bad pricing, or bad luck combined, and Gartner has actually documented it by name. Pilot purgatory. Think of it like a gym handing out free trial memberships, expecting a healthy share of trial users to convert to paying members. Except in this industry, according to research from MIT and Rand Corporation, somewhere between 70 and 85% of AI initiatives fail to meet their expected business outcomes. That means the large majority of the client projects an agency delivers never produce a result strong enough to justify converting that client from a one-time project fee into the recurring retainer that is the actual foundation of this business. Gartner's own research on why these projects fail points to four repeat causes. A generic agency without industry context builds the wrong solution. An agency overscopes the project to inflate billable hours and it never actually ships. There's no measurable success criteria defined up front, so nobody can agree the project even worked, or the automation isn't properly integrated into how staff already work, so it simply never gets adopted. Most first-time agency owners don't know to protect against any of this, and a single quarter spent delivering projects that quietly fail to convert can wipe out an entire year's client acquisition effort, because a failed pilot doesn't just cost you that client's retainer. It costs you the referral and the case study you needed to land the next 5. The revenue model, on paper, looks genuinely attractive. Take a monthly retainer of roughly $3,000 to $5,000, multiply it by 5 clients, and you're sitting on $15,000 to $25,000 a month in predictable recurring revenue, the kind of numbers solo AI agency founders report reaching within 6 to 12 months, according to published 2026 industry benchmarks. On a spreadsheet, that's a genuinely life-changing small business built with no employees and no inventory. But that clean formula assumes every client you land actually stays a client. And that assumption is exactly where the pilot purgatory problem comes back to collapse it. 2 agency founders can have identical skills, identical tool stacks, and identical pricing, and still produce wildly different outcomes based purely on this one number: their project-to-retainer conversion rate. A founder who specializes deeply in one industry, say dental practices or real estate lead qualification, and defines clear success metrics before every project starts, might convert 60 or 70% of projects into ongoing retainers because the automation actually gets adopted and actually gets used. A generalist founder taking any client who'll pay, with no clear before and after metric, might convert closer to 15 or 20%, meaning they have to close 5 or 6 new clients a month just to replace the ones who never converted, permanently trapped doing one-off project work instead of building the recurring base that makes this business actually compound. Same skills, same tools, same hours worked. One founder is building an asset. The other is running a treadmill that resets every month. Let's look at what this actually did to real companies. Builder.ai a London-based startup once valued at $1.5 billion, raised more than $445 million from Microsoft, SoftBank's DeepCore, and Qatar's sovereign wealth fund by promising its AI assistant, Natasha, could build custom software as easily as ordering pizza. Bloomberg's investigation revealed the truth in 2025. Roughly 700 human engineers in India were manually writing the code behind the curtain, while an internal 2022 memo instructed staff to minimize visibility of human labor because positioning must focus on our proprietary AI. Auditors later found the company's reported $220 million in 2024 revenue was actually closer to $55 million, inflated through a round-tripping scheme with an Indian media partner. When lender Viola Credit seized $37 million from the company's accounts after uncovering the deception, Builder.ai had no cash left to make payroll, laid off 80% of its workforce, and filed for bankruptcy in May 2025. The lesson: this entire industry runs on trust in a promise you can't fully verify from the outside, and the moment a company fakes the thing it's actually selling, no amount of funding saves it. Then there's the honest, unglamorous version of getting it right. Zapier, one of the tools that most AI automation agencies still build on top of today, was founded in 2011 by three friends in Columbia, Missouri, who kept their day jobs and coded from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. Y Combinator rejected them the first time they applied, telling them plainly that nothing in their background looked impressive. They kept building anyway, landed their first paying beta customers, and reapplied 6 months later with real traction to show. They got in the second time. Zapier raised just $1.4 million in total venture funding, reached profitability by 2014, and by 2021 was valued at $5 billion, while the founders still retained roughly 80% of the company's equity. The lesson isn't that bootstrapping is always right. It's that Zapier never tried to sell the flash of AI or automation as a concept. It sold the boring, reliable guarantee that when one app changes, another app correctly responds, every single time for millions of workflows a day. That is the exact same guarantee every AI automation agency is actually in the business of selling. Let's put honest numbers on what this business looks like for a single operator. Scenario 1, everything goes right. You specialize in one industry, real estate lead automation, with clear success metrics defined for every project. 5 active retainer clients at $4,000 a month each, a 65% project-to-retainer conversion rate, and 1 contractor helping you deliver, paid $3,000 a month. Annual revenue, approximately $240,000. Annual costs, contractor pay, software subscriptions, insurance, and your own reasonable owner's draw, factored in as overhead, approximately $90,000. Net operating profit, approximately $150,000 a year, built on a tool stack costing a few $100s a month and no physical assets at all. Scenario 2, the realistic version. Same skills, same tools, same starting pitch. This time you take whatever client will pay rather than specializing. Your project-to-retainer conversion rate sits closer to 20%, and you spend an extra 15 hours a week on sales calls to compensate for the churn. A competitor undercuts your pricing on Upwork, forcing you to discount 2 of your 3 active retainers by 30% to keep them. One client's automation fails silently for 2 weeks, drops 11 leads, and you lose the account along with the case study you were planning to use for outreach. Annual revenue, approximately $95,000, spread thin across a rotating door of one-off projects. Annual costs, with the extra unpaid sales time effectively lowering your realized hourly rate and software costs staying fixed regardless of client count, approximately $70,000 in hard costs alone before accounting for your own burn time. Net operating profit, approximately $25,000 a year for the same weekly hours worked as scenario 1. The difference between the good year and the bad year is $125,000 on the exact same tools, the exact same skill set, and the exact same number of hours worked. Only the conversion rate changed. In September 2011, Wade Foster, Brian Helmig, and Mike Knoop were 3 friends in Columbia, Missouri, freelancing web projects on the side while holding down day jobs. They kept getting asked by clients for the same thing, a way to make 2 pieces of software talk to each other without hand-coding it every time. They built a rough prototype in 2 days at a local hackathon, called it API Mixer, and entered it in a startup competition. It won. They applied to Y Combinator immediately. Rejected. Wade Foster later said plainly, "Nothing in our background looked particularly impressive. Instead of quitting, they kept building, kept talking to customers, and started charging a modest fee during the beta. 6 months later, with real paying users and a growing waitlist to show for it, they reapplied. This time, Y Combinator said yes. Zapier never chased the flashiest technology in the room. It built the plumbing that made every other tool's promise actually reliable, and it built a $5 billion company on $1.4 million of funding by refusing to sell the sizzle and just delivering the guarantee. IC step back for a second. The workflow is just the workflow. Anyone can drag a few boxes onto a canvas, connect two apps, and call it AI automation. None of that is the business. The business is the discipline behind the number almost no first-time founder tracks. How many of your projects actually convert into a client who trusts you enough to keep paying, month after month, without you having to prove it all over again? Right now, somewhere, there's an agency owner with a fully booked calendar of new client calls this week, a portfolio full of screenshots, and not one single retainer client left from the 5 projects they delivered last quarter.